Tree on my way home one evening, I smiled. Its presence was no longer just a symbol. It was a guide, a reminder that the roots and the branches were equally important, and so was the life in between. Chapter 16. The Two Voices. It was during a particularly tense week at work that I began noticing them. The two voices in my head. One voice was calm and reassuring, urging me to stay focused, to be kind even when things weren't going my way, and to trust that everything would work out if I stayed true to my values. The other voice was louder, angrier. It told me to lash out when a colleague missed a deadline. It whispered that I wasn't good enough and that I needed to prove myself at all costs. I started calling them my angel and my shadow. At first, I thought of the angel as the good one and the shadow as the bad one, but as the week wore on, I realized it wasn't so simple. The angel encouraged me to be patient and understanding, but sometimes it held me back when I needed to stand up for myself. The shadow, though often harsh, sometimes gave me the drive to push through challenges and confront difficult truths. The real challenge was learning to discern which voice to listen to in a given moment. One particular day, I found myself in a heated meeting. A team member had forgotten to prepare an important presentation, and I was furious. The shadow voice screamed at me to call them out in front of everyone, to show them the consequences of their mistake. But then the angel voice chimed in. "Is that the kind of leader you want to be?" I paused, took a deep breath, and addressed the team. This was an important task, and I know we're all feeling the pressure. Let's regroup and figure out how to move forward. After the meeting, the colleague who had missed deadline came up to me, clearly upset. "I'm so sorry, Ananya," they said. "I've been struggling with some personal issues, and I let it affect my work." In that moment, I felt the power of choosing the angel voice. By responding with understanding instead of anger, I had created space for connection and growth. But the shadow wasn't always wrong. Later that week, during a project review, I noticed that some feedback I had given weeks ago hadn't been addressed. This time, the shadow urged me to speak up, to assert my expectations. I did, and it led to a productive conversation about accountability and follow-through. As the days went by, I began to understand that both voices had their place. The angel represented qualities like compassion, patience, and humility, the traits that brought harmony to my life and relationships. The shadow, on the other hand, embodied drive, assertiveness, and resilience, the traits that pushed me to grow and overcome challenges. But there was a fine line between using the shadow's energy constructively and letting it consume me. When I acted out of anger, jealousy, or insecurity, I noticed how it created conflict and left me feeling drained. The key, I realized, was balance. One evening, I sat down with my journal and wrote out 2 lists, the qualities I wanted to nurture in myself and the ones I wanted to keep in check. On one side were traits like kindness, courage, and honesty. On the other were tendencies like impatience, pride, and defensiveness. Seeing it all on paper was eye-opening. It reminded me that the choices I made every day, how I responded to stress, how I treated others, how I approached my goals, were shaping the person I was becoming. Life, I understood, was a constant dance between the angel and the shadow. Neither could be ignored, but both needed to be guided with intention. The next time I faced a challenge, I took a moment to pause and ask myself, which voice will serve me best right now? And slowly, day by day, I started to feel more in control, not of the world around me, but of the person I was within it. The 2 voices were always there, but now I was the one deciding which to follow. Chapter 17. The Power of Belief. I never really thought much about faith, at least not in the traditional sense. Growing up, the idea of faith seemed tied to rituals, temples, and scriptures, none of which felt particularly relevant to my life. But over the years, I began to realize that faith wasn't just about religion. It was about the beliefs we carried in our hearts and how they shaped our actions. This realization hit me one evening when I was talking to my friend Mira. She had just started a new business and was telling me about the challenges she was facing. "It's hard," she admitted. "There are days I wonder if I made the right choice, but then I remind myself why I started. I believe in what I'm doing, and that belief keeps me going." Her words stayed with me. What do I believe in? I asked myself later that night. As I reflected, I realized that faith wasn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It took on different forms for different people, but it always had a profound impact on the way they lived. The more I thought about it, the more I began to notice 3 distinct types of faith in the people around me. The faith of clarity. This was the kind of faith I saw in Mira. It was grounded in purpose and guided by values. People with this kind of faith radiated a quiet confidence. They didn't need external validation because their belief came from within. I started to notice that when I approached tasks with clarity and conviction, whether it was a work project or a personal goal, I felt more aligned, more fulfilled. This was the faith I wanted to cultivate in myself. The faith of ambition. Then there were those whose faith was driven by passion and ambition. They were the go-getters, the ones constantly chasing new heights. I admired their energy, but I also noticed that this kind of faith could be a double-edged sword. Ambition was powerful, but when it wasn't balanced with reflection and purpose, it often led to burnout or dissatisfaction. I saw it in myself during times when I was working endlessly, not because I loved what I was doing, but because I was afraid of falling behind. The faith of comfort. Finally, there was the faith of comfort, the belief that things were fine as they were, that change was unnecessary or even undesirable. This kind of faith could be peaceful, but it could also lead to stagnation. I recognized this in moments when I avoided challenges, convincing myself that it was easier to stay where I was. But deep down, I knew that this kind of faith wasn't serving me. As I reflected on these 3 types of faith, I began to see how they influenced my choices. When my faith was clear and purposeful, I felt alive and connected. But when it was driven by fear, ambition, or complacency, I often ended up feeling lost. The next time I faced a decision, I paused to ask myself, what belief is guiding me right now? This simple question became a powerful tool. It helped me let go of the need to prove myself to others. It reminded me to stay true to my values, even when it wasn't the easiest path, and it gave me the courage to step out of my comfort zone, knowing that growth required faith in myself and in the journey. One day, while journaling, I wrote, "Faith isn't about never doubting. It's about choosing to move forward despite the doubts." From that point on, I began to nurture a faith that was clear, balanced, and rooted in purpose. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. Faith, I realized, wasn't something you found. It was something you built. Chapter 18. Letting Go. I never thought letting go could be a strength. For most of my life, I believed that holding on, whether to dreams, relationships, or responsibilities, was what defined commitment and perseverance. But life has a way of teaching you otherwise, and for me, that lesson came through a journey of unexpected release. It began with my job, which I had clung to for years, despite the growing sense of dissatisfaction. I told myself I was staying because it was stable, because it was prestigious, and because leaving would mean starting over, a thought that terrified me. But deep down I knew the real reason: fear. Fear of the unknown, of losing the identity I had built around my work, and of admitting that I wasn't happy. One Friday evening, after yet another exhausting week, I sat in my car, staring at the dashboard. The tears came before I even realized what was happening. It wasn't just about the job, it was everything. The expectations I had placed on myself, the need to prove my worth, and the weight of always trying to be in control. I had been carrying so much for so long, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming urge to let it all go. That weekend, I decided to take a break. A real one. No emails, no planning, no worrying about what came next. Instead, I went for a long walk by the river, something I hadn't done in years. As I sat by the water, watching it flow effortlessly around rocks and branches, I began to understand what surrender truly meant. It wasn't about giving up. It was about releasing the things that no longer served me, trusting that life would carry me forward if I let it. I thought about all the things I had been holding on to, my job, my insecurities, my need for control, and realized that they weren't making me stronger. They were holding me back. Renunciation without escape. Over the next few weeks, I began making changes, starting with my mindset. I didn't quit my job immediately, but I stopped letting it define me. I stopped chasing perfection and started focusing on what truly mattered, finding meaning in my work and being present with the people I cared about. I also let go of smaller things, the need to win every argument, the guilt I carried for past mistakes, and the endless what-ifs about the future. Each time I released something, I felt a little lighter, a little freer. But letting go didn't mean escaping from my responsibilities. In fact, it allowed me to approach them with a new sense of clarity and purpose. When I was no longer driven by fear or ego, I found that I could give my best without being weighed down by the outcome. Liberation through action. One day, as I was journaling, I wrote, "True freedom isn't about walking away. It's about showing up without attachment." This became my mantra. Whether it was a challenging project at work or a difficult conversation with a friend, I reminded myself to focus on the action, not the result. I couldn't control everything, but I could control how I showed up. And as I practiced this, something incredible happened. The more I let go of the need to control, the more things seemed to fall into place. Opportunities arose that I hadn't anticipated. Relationships deepened in ways I hadn't imagined. Most importantly, I felt at peace, not because life was suddenly perfect, but because I no longer needed it to be. A new beginning. Eventually, I did leave my job, but not out of frustration or fear. I left because I was ready to step into a new chapter, one rooted in purpose, rather than obligation. Looking back, I realized that letting go wasn't an act of weakness. It was the ultimate act of courage. It meant trusting that I was enough, no matter what I held on to or released. Life, I understood, wasn't about clinging to what you have or striving for what you lack. It was about moving forward with an open heart, willing to embrace whatever came your way. As I walked by the river one last time before moving to my new city, I smiled. The water still flowed, effortlessly navigating its path, and so would I. Conclusion: the journey within. As I look back on the stories of my life, I see them not as isolated events, but as chapters of a greater journey, a journey of growth, understanding, and transformation. Each moment, each struggle, and each revelation brought me closer to a truth I had been searching for all along. Life, I've realized, is like a vast, uncharted ocean. At times, the waters are calm, and the journey feels effortless. At other times, storms rage, threatening to capsize everything you've built. But through it all, the ocean teaches you to navigate, not by fighting the waves, but by learning to flow with them. Every chapter of my story, the moments of doubt, the voices within, the faith I cultivated, and the lessons in letting go, has been a reflection of this truth, from conflict to clarity. In the beginning, my life felt like a battlefield, much like the one Arjuna faced. I was caught between conflicting desires, torn by doubts, and unsure of my purpose. But through each experience, I learned that the answers I sought were never outside of me. They were within. The struggles weren't obstacles to be avoided. They were the very catalysts for my growth. They taught me the importance of faith, the balance between action and surrender, and the strength that comes from living with intention. The art of living. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life is an art, an ever-evolving masterpiece shaped by the choices we make and the beliefs we hold. It's about finding harmony between action and detachment, between ambition and contentment, between the self we present to the world and the self we are within. It's about embracing the dualities of life, joy and sorrow, success and failure, love and loss, not as contradictions, but as complementary forces that shape us into who we are meant to be. A journey without end. Even now, my journey isn't over. Each day brings new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow. But I no longer approach life with fear or hesitation. Instead, I embrace it with curiosity and trust. I've come to understand that liberation isn't a destination. It's a way of being. It's the freedom to live authentically, to act with purpose, and to let go of what no longer serves you. And while the journey within is deeply personal, it's also universal. We're all navigating the same ocean, seeking the same truths, and striving to become the best versions of ourselves. So as I close this chapter of my story, I do so with gratitude for the lessons learned, the battles fought, and the moments of clarity that have illuminated my path. And to you, dear reader, I offer this. May your own journey be one of courage, faith, and self-discovery. May you find strength in your struggles, wisdom in your doubts, and peace in the knowledge that everything you need is already within you. The story isn't over, it's just beginning. This book, True Stories of Growth, Life Lessons for a New Beginning, is the result of countless hours of reflection, writing, and dedication. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the following individuals and entities who have supported me throughout this journey. To my family and friends for their unwavering love, support, and encouragement. Your belief in me kept me going through the challenges of writing and personal growth. To my mentors and teachers for guiding me not only in my professional life but also in my personal growth. Your teachings and wisdom have shaped the way I live and think. To the two voices, to the angel and the shadow within me, for constantly challenging me and pushing me toward a deeper understanding of myself. You have shown me the power of balance and discernment. To the readers, for your time, attention, and the opportunity to share my stories. May you find inspiration, strength, and clarity as you embark on your own journey of self-discovery. To my editor and proofreaders, for your attention to detail and for ensuring that this book is the best version of itself. Your work behind the scenes has been invaluable to cover design and illustrations, for capturing the essence of this journey with your creativity and vision. To all who have contributed in big or small ways, thank you for making this book possible.